The rain came down like bullets on the metal roof of the old mining station. Staff Sergeant Dae-hyun Kim pulled his jacket tighter as he walked through the empty streets of Colony Base 7. The water ran in rivers down the broken concrete paths. His boots made wet slapping sounds with each step. 3 more days. That was all the time left before the evacuation ships would take the last humans away from this dead rock. Kepler 442c had given them everything it could. The mines were empty now. The ore was gone. Time to move on to another world. Dae-hyun checked his watch. 2,200 hours. His final patrol was almost done. Tomorrow he would help load the last equipment onto the transport ships. Then, this place would be nothing but empty buildings and bad memories. The wind howled between the abandoned structures. Most of the colony buildings were already dark. Only a few lights still worked in the main compound where the remaining crew stayed. Dae-hyun counted maybe 30 people left on the whole planet. Everyone else had already gone to better places. His radio crackled with static. "Base to Patrol 7, how does it look out there, Kim?" Dae-hyun pressed the talk button. "All quiet, Sergeant Lee. Just me in the rain. No problems to report." "Good. Get back soon. This storm is getting worse." "Copy that. Almost finished here." Dae-hyun turned the radio down and kept walking. The storm really was getting bad. Lightning flashed across the dark sky. Thunder rolled over the hills like the sound of big guns firing. He had seen storms before, but this one felt different. Angry. He walked past the old medical center and the broken playground where colonist children used to play. Now weeds grew through the cracks in the swing sets. Everything here was dying, or dead already. That was when he saw them. At first he thought it was just shadows moving in the rain. But then lightning lit up the sky again and he saw clearly. 2 shapes huddled under a piece of broken metal roofing. They were not human shapes. Dae-hyun stopped walking. His hand moved automatically to his weapon. Every muscle in his body went tight. Contact with alien life forms was supposed to be reported immediately to command. That was the rule. That was what kept humans safe. But these 2 were not attacking anyone. They were just sitting in the rain like lost animals. The bigger shape was tall and thin. Even sitting down, it looked almost as tall as Dae-hyun when he stood up. The smaller one pressed close against the big one. They were both shaking from the cold. Dae-hyun took a step closer, then another. His boots made noise on the wet ground, but the 2 shapes did not run away. Maybe they were too tired or too scared to move. When he got close enough to see better, Dae-hyun felt his breath catch in his throat. The big one was clearly female. Her skin looked like it had tiny lights under it that flickered when the lightning flashed. Her face was long and narrow with big eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She wore torn clothes that might have been white once but now were gray with mud and water. The small one was obviously her child. It had the same strange skin and the same big eyes. The child looked up at Dae-hyun with a face full of fear and hope mixed together. The female alien tried to stand up when she saw him. She moved slowly like someone who was hurt. When she spoke, her voice was soft and musical, even though she was scared. "Please," she said in broken galactic standard. The words came out wrong, but he could understand them. "We mean no harm. We have nowhere to go." Behind Dae-hyun, something moved in the shadows. A low growl came from the darkness between 2 buildings. The alien child made a small, frightened sound and pressed closer to its mother. "Beck," Dae-hyun called. "Come here, boy. Easy now." A large white dog stepped into the light. Beck was not really a normal dog, though. He was a warhound, bred and trained to fight alongside human soldiers. His muscles were bigger than any natural dog. His teeth were sharper. His senses were stronger. He could track enemies for miles and fight things twice his size. But right now, Beck was not acting like a war machine. He walked slowly toward the 2 aliens with his head tilted to one side. His tail was not wagging, but it was not raised in threat either. He seemed curious more than anything else. The alien child made a soft sound. Not words, but something like music. Beck stopped walking and sat down in the mud. He looked at the child with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand something Dae-hyun could not. "We are Villani," the female alien said. She was still standing, but barely. I am Nala. This is my son, Kale. We escaped from our homeworld when the hegemony came. They killed my husband. They burned our cities. We are all that is left. Yeah. Rain kept falling. Water ran down Nala's face, but Daehyun could not tell if it was just rain or if she was crying too. The child, Kale, had not stopped looking at Beck. The warhound had not stopped looking back. The evacuation ships, Nala said. Can we? Is there a way? She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Daehyun understood what she was asking. She wanted to know if there was room on the human ships for 2 alien refugees. She wanted to know if humans would help strangers from another world. Daehyun looked at his radio. One call to base and command would know about the aliens. They would send soldiers to collect Nala and Kyle. They would ask questions and run tests and decide what to do with them. Maybe they would help. Maybe they would not. Maybe they would just send them back to space to find somewhere else to die. The Book of Regulations was clear. Contact with unknown alien species must be reported immediately. No exceptions, no delays. That was how humans stayed safe in a dangerous galaxy. But looking at this mother and child shivering in the rain, Daehyun could not make himself reach for the radio. They were not dangerous. They were just scared and alone and asking for help. Kyle made that musical sound again. This time Beck stood up and walked closer. The warhound, trained to be suspicious of everything non-human, gently touched his nose to the child's hand. Kyle smiled for the first time since Daehyun had found them. Come on, Daehyun said, making a decision that would change everything. Let's get you out of this rain. He led Nala and Kale toward his quarters while Beck walked beside them like a guard. The storm raged on overhead, but Daehyun was not thinking about the weather anymore. He was thinking about what he would tell command in the morning. He was thinking about evacuation schedules and passenger lists and how to hide 2 aliens among 30 humans. Most of all, he was thinking that sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking the rules, even if those rules existed for good reasons. Even if breaking them could get him court-martialed or worse. The rain washed away their footprints as they walked toward shelter. Behind them, the empty colony buildings stood dark and silent. Ahead of them, warm lights promised safety for at least one more night. But Daehyun knew the hard choices were just beginning. Daehyun's quarters were small but warm. He gave Nala and Kale dry clothes from his spare uniform supplies. The clothes were too big for them, but at least they were clean and dry. Nala wrapped a blanket around her son while Beck lay down near the door like a guard. Thank you, Nala said in her musical voice. She was trying to use human words, but they came out strangely. You risk much for strangers. Daehyun heated some food rations on his small cooking unit. The smell of warm soup filled the room. Kyle's big eyes followed every movement Daehyun made. The child had not said a word since they came inside. Tell me about your people, Daehyun said as he handed Nala a cup of hot soup. What happened to your world? Nala's face became sad. She looked down at her hands holding the warm cup. The hegemony came 3 months ago. They said we were dangerous. They said our minds were wrong, unclean. She paused to drink some soup. Her hands shook slightly. Kyle moved closer to his mother, and she put her arm around him. My people have gifts, Nala continued. We can feel the emotions of others. We can share thoughts and memories. The hegemony fears this. They think we will control their minds or steal their secrets. Can you do that? Daehyun asked. Control minds? No. Nala shook her head firmly. We can only share, only connect. We cannot force or control. But the hegemony does not believe this. They decided to destroy us all. Kyle made a soft sound and looked at Beck. The warhound raised his head and looked back. Something passed between them that Daehyun could not understand. It was like they were talking without words. How did you escape? Daehyun asked. My husband Joran stayed behind to fight, Nala said. Tears ran down her face now. He held them off while Kale and I ran to our ship. We flew for weeks until our fuel ran out. We crashed here during the storm. She reached into her torn clothing and pulled out a small metal container about the size of Daehyun's fist. It was made of some material he had never seen before. It seemed to glow with its own inner light. "This contains the genetic patterns of our people," Nala said. "Seeds and cell samples and memory crystals. If we can find a safe place to grow, then maybe our race can survive. Maybe Kale will not be the last of his kind." Daehyun stared at the container. Such a small thing to hold the future of an entire species. The weight of responsibility felt heavy in the small room. "The hegemony hunts us," Nala said. "They offer rewards for any Villani found alive or dead. They will not stop until we are all gone." Outside, the storm was getting worse. Rain hammered against the windows like angry fists, but inside Kyle was making his musical sounds again. This time Beck got up and walked over to the child. The warhound lay down next to Kyle and let the small alien put a hand on his head. Daehyun watched. In amazement, Beck had been trained never to let anyone except his handler touch him. The dog was a weapon, not a pet. But here he was, acting gentle as a house cat with this alien child. "Your animal friend is special," Nala said, watching them too. Kale can sense his thoughts. They understand each other. "That's impossible," Daehyun said. "Beck is just a dog. Enhanced, but still just a dog." "Perhaps," Nala smiled for the first time. "Or perhaps there is more to your people's companions than, you know." Daehyun's radio crackled with static. A voice came through clearly. All units, this is command. We are receiving reports of unknown ships entering the outer system. All personnel report to stations immediately." Daehyun felt his blood turn cold. Unknown ships could only mean one thing. Someone had followed Nala and Kale to Kepler 442c. "They found us," Nala whispered. Her face went pale. "The hegemony found us." Daehyun grabbed his weapon and gear. "How long do we have?" "If they are just entering the system, maybe 6 hours before they reach the planet," Nala said. "But their sensors are very good. They will scan everything." "The evacuation ships don't leave for 2 days," Daehyun said, thinking quickly. "We need to hide you until then." "You should turn us over to them," Nala said quietly. "Save your people." "Save yourself," Daehyun looked at her. Then he looked at Kyle, who was still sitting with Beck. The child was scared but trying to be brave, just like any human kid would do. "No," Daehyun said. "We don't abandon people who need help. That's not what humans do." He opened his communication device and called 2 people he trusted most in the colony. "Jinwoo, Sora, I need you both at my quarters right now. Emergency. Tell no one else." "What's the problem?" Jinwoo's voice came through the speaker. "Just get here, fast." While they waited, Daehyun started making plans. The old mining tunnels ran under most of the colony. They were deep and had many places to hide. If he could get Nala and Kale down there, maybe they could stay hidden until the evacuation ships arrived. But first he had to convince Jinwoo and Sora to help him. He was asking them to risk their careers, maybe their lives. He was asking them to break the most important rule in the human military handbook. A knock came at the door. Daehyun opened it and let his 2 closest friends inside. Jinwoo Park was a communications specialist. So-Ra Lee worked in medical. Both of them had served with Daehyun for 3 years. Both of them trusted him completely. They stopped dead when they saw Nala and Kale. "Holy stars," Jinwoo whispered. "Those are aliens." "Yes," Daehyun said. "They're refugees. The hegemony is hunting them. They need our help." "Are you crazy?" So-Ra asked. "We have to report this immediately. Command needs to know." "Command will turn them over to the hegemony," Daehyun said. "These people will die." "They're not people," Jinwoo said. "They're aliens. Unknown aliens. This could be a trick." Kyle looked up at the 2 new humans with frightened eyes. He made a small sound and pressed closer to his mother. Beck moved to stand between the child and the strangers, ready to protect him. "Look at them," Daehyun said. "Really look. Do they seem dangerous to you?" So-Ra knelt down to get a better look at Kale. Her medical training made her examine him. like a patient. She could see he was scared and hurt and very young. "The child is injured," she said softly. "Malnutrition, exhaustion. Some kind of energy burns on his arms." "From hegemony weapons," Nala said. "We barely escaped." Jin Woo looked at Bayek lying protectively next to Kale. The warhound was completely calm and relaxed. Dogs could sense danger better than humans. If these aliens were threats, Beck would know it. "The evacuation ships," Jin Woo said slowly. "You want to smuggle them out with us?" "I want to save 2 innocent lives," Dae-hyun said. "The same thing any of us would want someone to do for our families." Sora stood up and looked at Dae-hyun. "This is treason, you know that, right? This could get us all court-martialed." "I know," Dae-hyun said. "I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just asking you not to report them until after we're gone." The radio crackled again. "All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown vessels confirmed hostile. Estimated arrival 4 hours. 4 hours. Less time than Dae-hyun had hoped for. We need to decide now," he said. "Help me or walk away. But if you walk away, you can never tell anyone what you saw here." Jin Woo and Sora looked at each other. Then they looked at Nala holding her frightened son. They looked at Bayek, standing guard over both aliens like they were his pack. "The mining tunnels," Sora said finally. "We can hide them in the old mining tunnels." Jin Woo nodded slowly. "I can modify the sensor readings from my station. Make it look like the tunnels are empty." Relief flooded through Dae-hyun. His friends would help. They were taking a huge risk, but they would help save 2 lives that needed saving. "Thank you," Nala said, understanding enough human speech to know what was happening. "Thank you all." Outside, the storm began to fade. But a bigger storm was coming from space. And this time it would not just be rain and wind. This time it would be ships with weapons and soldiers who saw Vellani as vermin to be exterminated. But Nala and Kale would not face it alone. They would have humans standing with them. And sometimes that made all the difference in the galaxy. The hegemony ships came down from the sky like black metal birds of prey. 3 large warships landed outside the colony while smaller hunter vessels circled overhead. Their engines made a sound like screaming wind that echoed off the empty buildings. Dae-hyun watched from the communications tower as soldiers poured out of the ships. They were Krillian warriors, tall and covered in dark armor that looked like insect shells. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but their movements were quick and deadly. Each one carried weapons that could burn through solid metal. "How many?" Jin Woo asked from his position at the sensor station. "Maybe 200 soldiers," Dae-hyun said. "Plus their commander and support crew. They're setting up a command post near the landing pad. In the mining tunnels below the colony, Nala and Kale were hidden in a deep chamber that used to store mining equipment. Sora had gone down earlier with medical supplies and food. The tunnels were dark and cold, but they were the safest place on the planet right now. "Commander Vex Torin of the Krillian fleet," a voice boomed across the colony from speakers on the hegemony ships. "All human personnel will gather in the main square immediately. Anyone who resists will be considered hostile." Dae-hyun grabbed his radio. "All units comply with their orders. No resistance. Act normal and answer their questions. Do not give them any reason to suspect we're hiding anything." He looked at Jin Woo. "Can you keep monitoring the tunnels from here?" "Yes, but if they scan too deeply, they might detect movement down there." "Then we better hope they don't scan too deeply." The human colonists gathered in the main square. There were only 28 people left, all of them tired and ready to leave this dead world behind. They stood in the rain and watched the Krillian soldiers surround them. Commander Vex Torin was bigger than his soldiers. His armor was decorated, with symbols that probably meant he had killed many enemies in battle. When he removed his helmet, his face looked like a lizard crossed with a shark. His eyes were yellow and cold. "Humans," he said in perfect galactic standard. "We are hunting dangerous criminals. Vellani terrorists who murdered innocent civilians and stole military secrets. They crashed on this world during the storm. You will tell us where they are hiding." Captain Myung-ho Choi stepped forward. He was the ranking human officer on the planet. "Commander, we have detected no alien life forms on Kepler 442c. Our sensors would have picked up any crash landings. Vex Torin smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. Your human sensors are primitive. Our equipment is much more advanced. The Volani criminals are here, we know this. He gestured to one of his soldiers who activated a scanning device. The machine beeped and hummed as it analyzed the area around the square. Residual psychic energy, the soldier reported. Volani mental patterns detected, less than 12 hours old. Dae-hyun felt sweat run down his back despite the cold rain. The hegemony technology was better than he had hoped. They could track Nala and KL by the psychic traces they left behind. Search every building, Vex Torin ordered. Scan every room, every storage area, every hiding place. The Volani cannot mask their mental signatures for long. We will find them. The Krillian soldiers spread out across the colony. They moved in organized groups, checking each building systematically. Their scanners could detect heat, movement, and apparently even psychic energy that Volani naturally produced. In the tunnels below, Kale was trying very hard to stay quiet. But fear made his psychic abilities stronger. Waves of emotion poured out of him like invisible signals that the hegemony equipment could detect. Beck sensed the child's distress. The warhound moved closer to Kyle and made soft whining sounds. Somehow this seemed to calm the young Volani. The psychic emissions grew weaker when Beck was near. That's interesting, Sora whispered, watching them in the dim light of her portable lamp. It's like the dog is helping him control his abilities somehow. Nala nodded. Your people's companions have always been special. More special than most. Humans realize. Above ground, the search was getting closer to the tunnel entrances. Dae-hyun watched from the communications building as Krillian soldiers checked every door and window. They would find the mining access points soon. Jin-woo, he said quietly into his radio. How are our friends doing down there? Staying quiet. But the scanners are picking up faint readings near tunnel entrance 3. They're getting suspicious. Dae-hyun made a decision. He left the communications building and walked across the square toward Commander Vex Torin. Several Krillian soldiers pointed their weapons at him but did not fire. Commander, Dae-hyun said in his most official voice, I am Staff Sergeant Kim, security chief for this colony. I need to report something important. Vex Torin turned those cold yellow eyes on him. Speak, human. We did detect a small ship crash during the storm, Dae-hyun said, gambling everything on one desperate lie. But it was in the volcanic region 20 kilometers north of here. The ship was destroyed. No survivors. You are certain of this? I investigated the crash site personally. Nothing but wreckage and burned ground. If there were aliens on that ship, they died in the crash. Vex Torin studied Dae-hyun's face carefully. The Krillian commander was an expert at detecting deception. But Dae-hyun had been trained to resist interrogation. He kept his expression calm and his voice steady. Show me, Vex Torin said finally. Sir? Take me to this crash site, now. Dae-hyun felt his heart sink. There was no crash site. There was no wreckage. If he led the hegemony forces north, they would find nothing and know he had lied. But if he refused to go, they would know he was hiding something. The area is unstable, he said, trying to buy time. Volcanic activity makes it dangerous to land ships there. My ships can handle volcanic activity, Vex Torin said. We leave in 10 minutes. If you have lied to me, human, your entire colony will pay the price. As Vex Torin prepared to leave with half his forces, Jin-woo made contact on the radio. Dae-hyun, there's a problem. The remaining soldiers are setting up deep scanning equipment. They're going to search the tunnels whether we guide them or not. Sora's voice came through the radio too. The child is getting more frightened. His psychic output is increasing. The dog is helping, but it might not be enough. Dae-hyun was trapped. If he went north with Vex Torin, the commander would discover his lie and return angry. If he stayed, the soldiers would find Nala and Kale in the tunnels. Either way, the aliens would be captured. There might be another way, Captain Choi said, appearing beside Dae-hyun. The evacuation ships. They're arriving early. Dae-hyun looked up at the sky. 3 transport vessels were descending through the clouds. They were 12 hours ahead of schedule. probably trying to avoid the hegemony forces. I can delay the tunnel search, Jinwoo said over the radio. Create some interference, maybe fake a technical malfunction, but only for an hour or two. That might be enough time, Sora added. If we can get them to the evacuation ships before the deep scans finish. Vextorn was watching the arriving human ships with suspicion. Those vessels will be searched before they leave. No one departs this world without hegemony approval. Of course, Commander, Captain Choi said. We will cooperate fully with your investigation. But Dae-hyun could see the plan forming in the captain's eyes. Choi was thinking the same thing they all were. Sometimes the right thing to do was the thing that broke all the rules. Jinwoo, Dae-hyun said quietly into his radio. Start that interference now. And get our friends ready to move. This is going to get interesting. In the tunnels below, Kyle looked up at his mother with frightened eyes. He could sense the danger above, could feel the hatred of the soldiers searching for them, but he could also feel something else, something warm and protective and brave. Humans were not going to abandon them. Even though it would be easier and safer to turn them over to the hegemony, the humans were going to keep fighting. They were going to keep protecting strangers from another world, just because it was the right thing to do. Beak seemed to understand what was coming. The warhound stood up and moved to the tunnel entrance, ready to guard the way out. His enhanced senses could detect the approaching soldiers, but he showed no fear. He was ready to fight if necessary. Stay close to me, Nala whispered to her son. The humans will protect us. I can feel it in their minds. They will not let the hegemony take us. Above them, the search was about to begin in earnest. But below ground, hope still lived. And sometimes hope was the most powerful weapon of all. Deep in the mining tunnels, Nala held her son close as the sound of marching boots echoed from above. The hegemony soldiers were getting closer. Their scanning equipment beeped and hummed as they searched each tunnel entrance. There is something, I must tell you, Nala whispered to Sora, who was checking her medical equipment in the dim light. Something about the connection between our peoples. Sora looked at her with questioning eyes. What do you mean? My people visited your world long ago, Nala said. Before your species learned to fly between the stars. Before you knew other life existed in the galaxy. Kale made one of his musical sounds. Beck immediately moved closer and put his head against the child's hand. The warhound's presence seemed to calm the boy's fear and reduce his psychic emanations. That's impossible, Sora said. Humans have no record of alien contact before we developed space travel. We were careful to remain hidden, Nala explained. We studied your people for many years. We learned about your capacity for compassion, your ability to form bonds across species lines. Your animals accepted us when other creatures ran in fear. She gestured toward Beck, who was still comforting Kale. We made a pact with your ancestors. We shared knowledge that helped your civilization advance. Mathematics, agriculture, medicine. In return, you promised that if our people ever needed sanctuary, humanity would provide it. Above them, Jinwoo's voice crackled over the radio. The interference won't hold much longer. They're bringing in bigger scanners. Maybe 15 minutes before they break through the signal jamming. Sora looked at Nala with amazement. You're saying humans and Vellani have been connected for thousands of years? More than connected, Nala said. She pulled out the metal container she had shown Dae-hyun earlier, but now she opened it, revealing not just genetic samples, but crystalline data cores that glowed with soft light. We influenced each other's evolution. Your companion animals, especially your dogs, carry genetic markers from our ancient contact. As if to prove her point, Kyle began making more of his musical sounds. Beck responded by moving in perfect harmony with the child's emotions. The warhound seemed to know exactly what the young Vellani needed before he asked for it. That's why Bayek reacts to Kale the way he does, Sora realized. He's responding to genetic programming from thousands of years ago. Your people bred animals for loyalty and protection, Nala said. We helped enhance those traits. We also left dormant abilities in some bloodlines. Abilities that activate when Vellani and human companions work together. The sound of boots in the tunnels was getting louder. Krillian voices echoed off the stone walls as they searched deeper underground. Their equipment was detecting faint psychic traces despite Jinwoo's interference. "We need to move," Sora said. "The evacuation ships are loading passengers. If we can get you there—" "Wait," Nala said. She was still holding the container of genetic samples. "There is more you must know. These are not just seeds and cell cultures. They contain the complete memory of our civilization. Every piece of knowledge, every discovery, every moment of our history." She looked directly at Sora with her large, expressive eyes. "If the hegemony captures these memories, they will learn the location of every Vellani refugee in the galaxy. They will track down survivors on distant worlds and complete their genocide." The weight of that revelation hit Sora like a physical blow. They were not just protecting two individuals. They were protecting the survival of an entire species and the safety of refugees scattered across known space. "How many others are out there?" she asked. "Perhaps 50 ships escaped," Nala said sadly. "Maybe 300 of my people still live. Without these genetic samples and memory cores, they cannot rebuild our civilization. Without the knowledge stored here, they cannot even find each other." Beck suddenly raised his head and growled low in his throat. His enhanced hearing had detected something the humans could not yet sense. Krillian soldiers were very close now. "Found something," a harsh voice called from nearby tunnels. "Energy readings this way, moving to investigate." Sora grabbed her. Radio. "Daehyun, Jinwoo, we're out of time down here. They've found our location." Daehyun's voice came back immediately. "Evacuation ship 2 is ready for departure. Can you get to loading bay 3? "Not without being seen," Sora replied. "Too many soldiers between us and the surface." "Then we create a distraction." Captain Choi's voice joined the conversation. "Something big enough to draw them away from the tunnels." Above ground, Daehyun was still with Commander Vex Torin near the landing pad. The Krillian commander was growing suspicious about the delay in searching the volcano crash site. His yellow eyes kept scanning the human evacuation ships with obvious mistrust. "Your vessels are taking a long time to load," Vex Torin observed. "Human efficiency is normally better than this." "Equipment problems," Captain Choi said smoothly. "Old mining machinery is heavy and difficult to move. We should be ready soon." But Vex Torin was no fool. He activated his communication device and spoke in the harsh Krillian language to his soldiers in the tunnels. The response made his face twist into an angry snarl. "My forces have detected Vellani psychic signatures in your underground areas," he said to Daehyun and Captain Choi. "You have been lying to me, humans. The penalty for harboring terrorists is death." Daehyun felt time slow down as Vex Torin reached for his weapon. This was the moment when everything would either succeed or fail catastrophically. The moment when humans would show what they were really made of. "Jinwoo," he said into his radio. "Emergency Plan 7. Now." All across the colony, things began to happen at once. Jinwoo activated emergency systems that had been installed when the mining operation first began. Sirens wailed, emergency lights flashed, and most importantly, the mining explosives that were supposed to be removed before evacuation suddenly activated. The ground shook as controlled explosions went off in the old mine shafts. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to create chaos and confusion. Dust and debris filled the air. Emergency protocols demanded that everyone evacuate to safe zones. In the confusion, Sora led Nala and Kale through tunnel passages that connected to the maintenance areas under the evacuation ships. Bayek ran ahead of them, using his enhanced senses to detect any soldiers in their path. But the Warhound was moving differently now. His movements were perfectly synchronized with Kyle's needs. When the child stumbled, Bayek was there to steady him. When fear made Kale's psychic abilities flare, Bayek somehow absorbed or redirected the energy. They moved together like they had been partners for years instead of hours. "It's like they're connected," Sora whispered as they reached the maintenance tunnel under evacuation ship 2. "They are," Nala said. "The ancient pact is awakening. Your companion and my son are becoming something new, something that bridges our species." Above them, Captain Choi was shouting orders to his crew while Krillian soldiers ran in all directions trying to restore order. The explosions had not harmed anyone, but they had created exactly the distraction needed. Loading Bay 3 is clear, Jinwoo reported over the radio. Repeat, loading Bay 3 is clear for 30 seconds. Sora, Nala, Kale, and Beck climbed up through the maintenance hatch directly into the evacuation ship's cargo hold. Human crew members who had been waiting quickly sealed the hatch behind them and activated the ship's departure sequence. But Commander Vex Torin was not fooled by the explosions. He had been fighting wars for too long to be distracted by obvious tricks. As the evacuation ships prepared to launch, he ordered his own vessels to power up their weapons. "No human ship leaves this world until we have searched every compartment," he announced over the communication channels. "Any vessel that attempts to depart will be destroyed." In the cargo hold of Evacuation Ship 2, Nala clutched the container of genetic memories against her chest, so close to escape, but still trapped by hegemony power and hatred. "There has to be something we can do," she said to Sora. "There is." Captain Choi's voice came over the ship's intercom. "But it's going to require all of us working together, human and Vellani, just like in the old days." Kale looked up at his mother with hope in his large eyes. Beside him, Beck stood ready for whatever came next. The ancient pact between their peoples was more than just history. It was about to become their salvation. The final test was coming, and for the first time since the hegemony had begun their hunt, the Vellani would not face it alone. The evacuation ships hung in the air above the colony, their engines humming with power but unable to leave. Commander Vex Torin's warships surrounded them, weapons charged and ready to fire. Any ship that tried to escape would be destroyed instantly. The cargo hold of Evacuation Ship 2, Captain Choi gathered his senior officers around a small holographic display. The image showed the positions of all the ships in the area. 3 human evacuation vessels against 3 hegemony warships. It was not a fair fight. "They want to search our ships," Captain Choi said quietly. "They know we're hiding the Vellani somewhere. When they find them, they'll execute them on the spot." Dae-hyun looked at Nala and Kale, who were still hidden behind cargo containers with Bayek standing guard. "So we don't let them search?" "How exactly do we stop them?" Jinwoo asked. "Their ships have enough firepower to turn us into space dust." "We make them an offer they can't refuse," Dae-hyun said. He activated his communication device and switched to the frequency Vex Torin was monitoring. "Hegemony Command, this is Staff Sergeant Kim. I want to make a deal." Vex Torin's harsh voice crackled through the speaker. "You are in no position to make deals, human. Surrender the Vellani terrorists and you may live." "I have them," Dae-hyun said. "The woman and the child you're hunting, they're here with me on Evacuation Ship 2, but I want something in return." "What do you want?" "Safe passage for the other evacuation ships. Let them go, and I'll hand over the Vellani personally." There was silence for a moment. Then Vex Torin laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "You would sacrifice yourself for strangers? For aliens who mean nothing to your species?" "These people came to us for help," Dae-hyun said. "That makes them our responsibility." Captain Choi grabbed Dae-hyun's arm. "What are you doing? You can't just give them up." "I'm buying time," Dae-hyun whispered, "and showing the galaxy what humans really stand for." But Jinwoo and Sora were already moving toward the cargo hold exit. They had heard the conversation and made their own decision. "If you're staying, we're staying," Sora said firmly. "This is insane," Jinwoo added, "but we're not leaving you behind." Within minutes, the other 2 evacuation ships began to withdraw from the area. Their human crews did not want to abandon their friends, but they understood the sacrifice being made. The civilians and non-essential personnel would live because 3 soldiers chose to stay behind. "Acceptable," Vex Torin said over the communication system. "Dock your ship with mine. Bring the Vellani to our cargo bay. Any attempt at deception will result in your immediate death." As Evacuation Ship 2 moved toward the hegemony warship, something unexpected was happening throughout human space. The communication systems on all the evacuation ships were still active. Word of the standoff was spreading from ship to ship, from colony to colony across the entire human network. Captain Choi had made sure of that. Every human settlement would know what was happening on Kepler 442c. They would know that 3 of their people were sacrificing themselves to protect alien refugees. "You realize we're probably going to die?" Jinwoo said as they prepared to board the hegemony ship. "Maybe," Dae-hyun replied. "But maybe not. Sometimes doing the right thing creates possibilities you didn't expect." In the cargo hold, Nala was preparing Kale for what might be their final moments together. The young Villani was trying to be brave, but fear made his psychic abilities surge uncontrollably. Waves of emotion poured out of him like a beacon. Beck moved closer to the child and did something none of the humans had seen before. The warhound's eyes began to glow with a faint light that matched the glow in Kale's eyes. Somehow Beck was absorbing and redirecting the psychic energy. "The ancient bond is fully active now," Nala whispered to Sora. "Your companion and my son are sharing abilities. This is what the pact was meant to create." "What kind of abilities?" Sora asked. Before Nala could answer, the ship docked with the hegemony warship. The airlock hissed open and Krillian soldiers poured into the cargo bay. Their weapons were raised and ready to fire. Commander Vex Torin entered behind his soldiers. His yellow eyes scanned the cargo hold until they found Nala and Kale. A cruel smile spread across his reptilian features. "Finally," he said. "The last of the terrorist cell. You have caused us much trouble, Villani." "They're not terrorists," Dae-hyun said, stepping between Vex Torin and the aliens. "They're refugees, a mother and child running from genocide. They are criminals who stole classified information and murdered innocent civilians," Vex Torin replied. "The Hegemony Council has voted. All Villani must be eliminated for galactic security." Kale made a frightened sound and pressed closer to his mother. The psychic energy radiating from him grew stronger. But instead of creating chaos, something remarkable happened. Beck stepped forward, and the combined energy of dog and child created a protective barrier that Krillian sensors could not penetrate. "Impossible," one of the soldiers muttered, staring at his scanning equipment. "The readings just disappeared." Vex Torin's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing, human? What kind of technology is this?" "It's not technology," Dae-hyun said, realizing what was happening. "It's evolution. It's what happens when 2 species choose cooperation over domination." The commander raised his weapon toward Dae-hyun. "Enough games. You will surrender the criminals or you will all die here." That was when the first human ship arrived. It was not a military vessel. It was a cargo hauler from the mining colony on Titan, 50 light-years away. Its captain had heard about the standoff and made an emergency jump to Kepler 442c. "Attention, Hegemony forces," the cargo ship's captain announced over open frequencies. "This is Captain Minho from the Titan Mining Consortium. We are here to escort our people home." Vex Torin frowned. "1 civilian ship against 3 warships. Your captain is either brave or stupid." But more ships were arriving. A passenger liner from Europa, a research vessel from the outer colonies, a freight convoy that had been passing through nearby space. All of them human, all of them responding to the call that had gone out across the communication networks. "Attention Hegemony forces," came another voice. "This is Captain Hae-jin from the passenger liner New Seoul. We are here for our people." More voices joined. The chorus. Mining ship Busan reporting. Research vessel Daegu arriving. Freight convoy Incheon ready to assist. Within an hour, 30 human ships surrounded the Hegemony warships. Not military vessels, just ordinary people who had heard that their fellow humans needed help. Miners and researchers, freight haulers and passenger ship crews, all willing to risk their lives for 3 soldiers and 2 alien refugees they had never met. Commander Vex Torin stared at the tactical display showing all the human ships. His expression shifted from confidence to confusion to something that might have been fear. "This makes no logical sense," he said to Dae-hyun. "These humans gain nothing by helping you. They risk destruction for strangers." "Why would they do this?" "Because that's what humans do," Dae-hyun said simply. "We protect people who need protecting, even if it costs us everything." The Krillian commander had spent his entire career fighting wars based on logical calculations, territory and resources, strength against weakness, survival of the most powerful. But this was something completely outside his experience. An entire species willing to sacrifice for moral principles instead of practical gain. "You cannot fight, all of us," Captain Choi announced over the communication system. "Withdraw your forces and leave these people alone. We outnumber you," Vextorin said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Yes, you do," Captain Minho replied. "But we're not leaving. Every human in this system would rather die than let you commit genocide while we watch." More ships kept arriving. The human communication networks had carried word throughout known space. Colony ships and exploration vessels, trading craft and research platforms. Even some non-human vessels crewed by species who had come to respect humanity's unusual moral stance. Kyle looked up at the growing fleet with wonder in his large eyes. Beck wagged his tail for the first time since the crisis began. The psychic bond between them carried a sense of hope and safety that spread to everyone in the cargo hold. "Your people," Nala whispered to Sora. "They came for strangers, for aliens they do not even know." "That's humanity for you," Sora replied with pride. "We're stubborn about doing the right thing." Commander Vextorin found himself facing a choice he had never expected to make. He could order his ships to open fire and start a war against an entire species, or he could withdraw and report to the Hegemony Council that humans represented something new and dangerous in galactic politics, a species that could not be controlled through fear or logical calculation. "This is not over," he said finally. "The Hegemony will remember this defiance." "Good," Daehyun said. "Make sure they remember it clearly. Remember that humans stand with the innocent against those who would destroy them." The Krillian soldiers withdrew to their ships. The warships powered down their weapons and began to move away from the human fleet. Commander Vextorin had made his choice. He would not start a war with humanity over 2 Vellani refugees. But as his ships departed, he carried with him a new understanding of what made humans dangerous. It was not their weapons or their technology. It was their willingness to sacrifice for others, their refusal to. 3 months after the standoff at Kepler 442c, Daehyun stood in the gardens of New Harmony Colony, watching children play in the afternoon sun. Human children and 1 young Vellani ran together through the grass while their dog companions chased after them. It was a sight that would have been impossible just a few months ago. Kale had grown taller and stronger since arriving in human space. His iridescent skin had lost the pale color of fear and malnutrition. He laughed as he played with the human children, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Beside him, Beck had adapted perfectly to life as both protector and playmate. "The tribunal reached their decision," Captain Choi said, walking up behind Daehyun with official papers in his hand. "Full pardons for all personnel involved in the Kepler incident. The High Command has decided that your actions represented the best of human military values." Daehyun took the papers without much interest. He had been prepared for court-martial, prison, even execution for disobeying direct orders. The pardons were nice but not important compared to what had been accomplished. "Any word from the Hegemony?" he asked. "They've withdrawn their forces from 3 border systems," Choi replied. "Our intelligence report suggests they're re-evaluating their expansion plans. Apparently they're concerned about provoking more human intervention." Across the garden, Nala was working with Dr. Sora in a research facility that had been built specifically for Vellani genetic restoration. The metal container that held her people's future had become the foundation for something extraordinary. Not just the rebirth of one species, but a new model for interspecies cooperation. 37 Vellani refugees have been located and brought to human space, Jinwoo said, joining the conversation. His new job as Director of Refugee Communications kept him busy coordinating rescue operations across the galaxy. The genetic samples are working. Dr. Nala says they can begin reconstruction of their homeworld within 5 years. But the real changes were happening at levels nobody had expected. The ancient connection between humans, their animal companions, and the Vellani had awakened abilities that scientists were still trying to understand. Children who grew up with both species seemed to develop enhanced empathy and problem-solving skills. Dogs and other companion animals showed increased intelligence when exposed to Villani's psychic energy. "There's something else," Choi said, lowering his voice. "We've been contacted by refugee groups from 6 other species. They're all asking for human protection from various hostile forces. Word has gotten out about what we did for the Villani." Dae-hyun nodded. He had expected this. Once humanity demonstrated its willingness to fight for alien refugees, it was inevitable that more would come seeking help. The question was whether human space could handle the responsibility. "The Colonial Council is meeting next week to establish formal policies," Choi continued. "They want you to head the new Refugee Protection Service." "Me?" Dae-hyun looked surprised. "I'm just a sergeant who broke some rules." "You're the man who showed the galaxy what humanity stands for," Choi said. "That makes you the right person for the job." In the research facility, Nala was teaching a group of human scientists about Villani biotechnology. Her people's mastery of genetic engineering was helping to solve medical problems that had plagued human colonies for decades. In return, human industrial techniques were accelerating Villani reconstruction efforts. "The symbiosis is remarkable," Dr. Sora said, reviewing data from the latest experiments. "Human and Villani children who grow up together show enhanced cognitive abilities. Their animal companions develop problem-solving skills we've never seen before. It's like our species are designed to work together." "Perhaps we are," Nala replied. "The ancient pact spoke of a greater purpose, a joining of minds and hearts that would prepare both species for challenges yet to come." Young Kale ran into the facility with Beck beside him, both of them excited about something they had discovered in the garden. The boy's psychic abilities had grown stronger, but also more controlled. The warhound's presence helped him focus his talents in positive directions. Mother, Kyle said in rapidly improving human speech. "The new plants are singing, the ones from the Andromedan refugees. Beck can hear them too." Nala smiled at her son's enthusiasm. The Andromedan plant singers were the latest refugee species to arrive in human space. Their living cities required a delicate balance of psychic energy to survive. Working with Villani and human-animal partnerships, they were creating something entirely new. "Show me," Nala said, following Kale back into the garden. Dae-hyun watched them go, then looked at the official papers in his hand. Director of Refugee Protection Service. It was a big responsibility, but one that felt right. Humanity had discovered something important about itself during the Kepler crisis. They were not just explorers and colonists. They were protectors and bridge builders. "I'll take the job," he said to Captain Choi. "But I want Jinwoo and Sora as my deputies. And I want Beck officially assigned as the first interspecies liaison dog." "Done," Choi said with a smile. "The council was hoping you'd say yes." 6 months later, the first Interspecies Protection Summit was held on New Harmony Colony. Representatives from 12 different refugee species attended, along with human officials and Villani leaders. The gathering would have been impossible without the translation abilities of human-animal partnerships, guided by Villani psychic talents. Dae-hyun stood at the podium addressing the assembled delegates. Behind him, a holographic display showed the current refugee population in human space. Nearly 3,000 individuals from 18 different species, all living under human protection. "We gather today not as separate species competing for resources," he said, "but as partners working toward a common goal. The protection of all innocent life regardless of origin or appearance." The audience included beings that looked like walking trees, aquatic creatures in specialized tanks, gaseous entities contained in energy fields, and dozens of other life forms. All of them had found safety in human space when nowhere else would take them. "The hegemony teaches that strength comes from domination," Dae-hyun continued. "But we have learned something different. True strength comes from cooperation, from protecting those who cannot protect themselves, from building bridges instead of walls." In the audience, Kale sat with a group of refugee children of various species. Now 10 years old in human terms, he served as a translator and mediator when young refugees arrived scared and confused. Baek, older and grayer but still devoted, helped comfort frightened children regardless of their biology. Today we sign the new covenant, Daehyun announced, holding up a document written in dozens of different languages and communication methods. A formal alliance between all species who choose cooperation over conquest, protection over predation. The signing ceremony took hours as each species added their agreement in their own unique way. Some signed with complex mathematical formulas. Others contributed genetic patterns or energy signatures. The Vallani added a psychic imprint that would allow future generations to feel the emotional commitment behind the words. But the most important signature came last. A simple human name written in basic letters. Daehyun Kim, Director of Refugee Protection Service. Below it, a paw print in blue ink where Baek had been carefully guided to mark the document. Let this be a message to the galaxy, Daehyun said as the ceremony concluded. Humanity and its allies will not stand by while innocents suffer. We will not allow genocide while we have the power to prevent it. This is our promise. This is our covenant. Hat followed lasted 3 days. Species that had been enemies for generations found common ground in human space. Technologies were shared freely. Cultural exchanges began that would enrich all civilizations involved. On the final evening, Daehyun sat in his garden watching the sunset with Baek at his side. The old warhound had adapted well to peaceful life, but he remained alert and ready to protect if necessary. Do you think we did the right thing? Daehyun asked his faithful companion. Baek looked up at him with intelligent eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. The psychic enhancement from years of working with Vallani partners had changed the dog in subtle ways. He seemed to understand complex concepts that no normal animal should grasp. The dog's tail wagged once, a clear answer. Yes, they had done the right thing. Across the garden, Nala was teaching a mixed group of children about the history of the galaxy. Human, Vallani, Andromedan, and 3 other species sat in a circle listening to stories of ancient civilizations and future possibilities. Remember, she told them, every choice creates the future. Every act of kindness makes the galaxy a little better. Every bridge built makes it harder for walls to divide us. Young Kale raised his hand. What if the bad people come back? What if the hegemony tries to hurt people again? Nala smiled at her son's question. Then we will stand together. Humans and Vallani and all our friends. The hegemony is strong, but we have something they do not understand. We have each other. The children nodded seriously, already understanding the lesson. In a galaxy full of dangers and hostile forces, they were part of something special. A community, built on protection rather than conquest, cooperation rather than domination. As night fell over New Harmony Colony, the lights of a dozen different species twinkled like stars across